Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, beloved Saitlanders. How are you? We hope that all is well with you under the circumstances. And I think that you will all agree with me when I say that things are looking a little bit scary in South Africa. And I want to talk to you today about one of the, if you like, symptoms of the worsening of this disease. Something which I believe, is severely overlooked by almost everybody. Last night, I held a conversation with a Saitlander of many years, a very competent person, a very good contributor to the Saitlander cause, and we were discussing the pace at which things are going wrong and the likelihood of a crisis at some point. And I responded to something that he said by saying, firstly, what I'm about to say and what I'm about to say to you, viewers, is not about prophecy. It's not about, as Johanna Brandt put it, a vulkanische uitbarsting, a volcanic explosion, if you like, a volcanic bursting out. Volcanic eruption is the word I'm looking for. It's not what I'm about to discuss with you, is not about die nacht van die lang messe. I'm talking simply about the conditions and circumstances that are liable to prevail in the forthcoming period unless there is something dramatic. So if there is a fuse that ignites, if a fuse is lit which ignites a crisis in South Africa, well, then all bets are off. But failing that, we are likely to live through something that is really worth talking about, and about which very few people, if any, are talking. And the symptom that I want to share with you is the Employment Equity Amendment Bill. So the Employment Equity Act of 1998 is meant to be amended this year in 2020. And the gist of it is that the minister in question, Thulas Nxesi, will be delegated powers to he himself enforce changes within private companies of 50 persons and above, of 50 personnel, 50 employees and above. And the guideline or the yardstick for enforcing changes in the demographic profile of the employees of the company is the percentage in the greater population of black people, which is 79%. I beg your pardon. Now, I'll digress slightly and tell you very quickly that about half, this is a fact, you can look it up, about 1/2 of all black people are below the age of 25. So it's a very skewed thing. It's a very false comparison. It's very false to say that because black people form 79% of the population, they should logically be in 79% of the posts. No matter how radical you are, It's mathematically false because the overwhelming proportion of those, that 79% is below the age of 30. Indeed, as I've just said, 50% are 25 and younger, or below 25, I should say. So, by that logic, it's people of the age of 1 and 5 and 10 and 15 and 18 years old who should be represented as blacks. That body should be represented fairly in private companies. So the bill aims, as I've just said, to give the minister the right, and obviously through his delegated subordinates, but the point is that it's not a right that rests with the courts or with the parliament. It's at ministerial level. It's at ministry level that this thing will be implemented. So he will be able to come along to your company, if you've got 100 staff, and say, at every level there must be 4/5 blacks. 4/5 blacks at the labor level, the blue collar level, let's call it, let's call it the labor level, the unskilled level. At the next tier, there should be 4/5 blacks, and all the way up to the apex of the pyramid. And there are natural consequences that you can imagine for yourself of this. It's going to ensure that the private companies of South Africa are subject to similar levels of incompetence to which the government, the various tiers of government of South Africa are subject, and to which the state-owned enterprises of South Africa are subject. Indeed, even Pravin Gordhan has admitted that the reason why these state-owned enterprises are failing is because people have been appointed to positions on the basis of their race and their connections and so on, rather than on the basis of merit. Because they were black, they were employed. And it's natural that we will therefore see a demise in in private businesses in South Africa. Privately owned companies in South Africa are going to be pulled down by the same factors that pulled down your local municipality, pulled down SAA, pulled down your provincial government to levels of hopelessness, frankly, and pulled down Eskom and pulled down the national government, the levels of competence and capability and service and so on of the ministries of government. Therefore, and I reiterate that this is one symptom that leads us to know that the disease is going to worsen. There are many others. The expropriation without compensation will have a terribly detrimental effect upon South Africa as a whole. The current fiscal crisis is going to have a knock-on effect. And so the list goes on and on and on. Now, I come to the point, namely, that it's high time that people like you and I began to figure out if we're not going to pack for Perth, how will we survive and how will we protect our interests and how will we take care of ourselves and our families and our futures in worsened circumstances. And I put it to you, as I said right at the beginning of this video, that nobody's talking about this phenomenon. This phenomenon that next year will be manifestly worse than this year. And that 2 years from now will be manifestly worse again. It seems to me, and to people with whom I'm speaking, such as the chap with whom I chatted on the phone last night, that there is a shortage of people mentally, I want to use the Afrikaans phrase, I can't think of the right English word, mentally adjusting themselves to cope with much harsher circumstances in South Africa. It seems as if most of us are complacently allowing things to happen in the spirit of, to use an Afrikaans expression, 'n boer maak 'n plan. Now that's Afrikaners, English people, Boere, Lebanese, Greeks, Portuguese, Italians, whoever, doesn't matter. All of us seem to be carrying on in the spirit of that Afrikaans idiom. We'll take it as it comes. We'll see when we get there. There are many very strong, intellectually strong organizations like the Institute for Race Relations, which is discussing this matter, but not discussing how will we cope. Now, I presume that guys like Old Mutual, Anglo-American, South African breweries, MTN, and the like are indeed planning around this stuff because they're so heavily invested that they can't afford not to. And you will probably find that there are rather confidential conversations being held between extraordinarily competent people at the very highest levels concerning this. But those conversations are not filtering downward. We're not hearing, for instance, the Institute for Security Studies, perhaps that's a poor example. The Institute for Race Relations, perhaps again it's a poor example. The Center for Risk Analysis, that can't be a poor example, that must be an outstanding example. Solidariteit and AfriForum speaking publicly about how will we cope. Exactly how will we cope? And what must we do to be able to cope with what is coming? In other words, how shall we plan and prepare to be in that position to act? So we're talking about the planning and the preparation and the action down the line. I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that between 9 and 15 months from now, we will live in a much different South Africa to the South Africa of, let's say, for the sake of a convenient reference point, the beginning of 2020. So as we approach the end of 2022, roughly, loosely speaking, we are almost certainly going to be living in a world of higher inflation. Whether it's much higher or not, I don't know yet. There's no way of knowing, obviously. Higher unemployment, greater fiscal challenges, in other words, greater shortfalls of money at governmental level, a slacker economy, and much reduced velocity of money. In other words, much reduced movement of money, much reduced access to ready money. This seems almost inevitable. There's very little reason to believe that this prognostication, this forecast that I'm making, this prediction, could be wrong. Not because I'm a guru or because Suidlanders are gurus in this field, but by virtue of the research that we conduct here at Suidlanders by Mr. Miller's mandate, or upon his mandate, it is clear that we are headed in that direction. And we are now going through a sort of a critical phase, a window period, as a twilight zone, if you like, where things are not yet quite so bad, and if they do get worse, they could potentially get much, 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 much worse. If we use twilight, if we extend the metaphor of twilight, we could say, well, at 3 a.m, which is a long way from now, it's going to be much, much, much worse. We're not at that point yet. It's true. But we are also, it seems, exiting that twilight zone, that twilight period. In other words, the sunlit uplands, the best days, the best, brightest, most productive part of the day of South Africa is behind us. And we've gone into a dim, cloudy, miserable afternoon that has led to a twilight. And now we are preparing to enter something that might be described as real darkness. Not because Simon Roche thinks he's clever, but because all of the evidence that is available tells us that there isn't a ready solution for the government's fiscal crisis. There isn't a ready solution to the unemployment crisis in South Africa. There isn't a ready solution to the economic crisis in South Africa. There isn't a ready solution to the brain drain in South Africa. There's every reason to believe that it is now really going to deteriorate in a way that we perhaps haven't seen in the past. There isn't a ready solution for the fiscal crisis in national government. There isn't a ready solution to the problem of the brain drain in South Africa. There isn't a ready solution to the economic crisis in South Africa. There isn't a ready solution to the unemployment crisis in South Africa. So there is every reason to believe that things are going to get worse, even without the help of the Employment Equity Amendment Act of 2020. Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us in this video? I think that we've said quite a lot today. I think that this is good food for thought. I think that we are sowing healthy seeds in people's minds to enable them to prepare for a crisis before a crisis, to prepare for a decline that is going to begin to have a manifest effect upon ordinary people's ordinary lives, which has often not been the case over the past, call it 27, 28 years in South Africa. Since the beginning of multiracial democracy, for a long period, very few people were affected. Let's face it, the people in the squatter camps, although they have been terribly, terribly, terribly hurt, terribly harmed by the biases of the new South Africa, they in fact form a relatively small proportion of the population. And most middle-class white suburban dwellers in South Africa have been affected in incremental ways, not in drastic ways, not in radical ways. Yes, we're all a little bit poorer. Yes, our money buys less. Yes, we aren't able to enjoy the same lifestyles as our parents did. And yes, more of us are living in flats and duplexes and simplexes and houses that don't have swimming pools and so on and so forth. It's true. But I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that now we are going to begin to see a more rapid transition from the day through the twilight into the evening of South Africa. And we must begin to think very hard, how will we cope? What will we do? I held a conversation with somebody the night before last. Today is Monday the 31st of May. I believe it was, yes, Saturday evening. Hannes and Tannie Linda and John and Narina. And I said to them that I foresee that over the course of the next year we are going to begin to help one another far more than we have ever in the past. How much we can do for one another is arguable, but we are going to come to rely upon one another more and more and more. And a year beyond that, it is going to be worse again. But so far, very, very few people are participating in that. I know that many of you Saitlanders do. I know that many of you Saitlanders help people in squatter camps. I think of the work that Bertha Schwan does. I think of the the donations that many of you have made and do make to other people. I think of Mr. Miller donating me his own family solar systems batteries, or a portion of them, I should say. I think of Johan van der Poel and Jurek Drent installing my solar system for me for nothing. I think of the person who I've alluded to previously, who wishes to remain anonymous, who assisted me with the panels and the connectors and the so on and the so forths. And of course the American guy that helped with the cash, the actual cash that was required. So nobody is suggesting that nobody is doing anything for anybody else. I'm merely telling you that there is every sign that now, ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching a more difficult period. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this video. I know that it's been a long one. I know that we've been making many long ones in recent days. And some of you have passed on messages to Ernst and other people asking me to keep the videos shorter, and I'll certainly try to do that. Unfortunately, I think we're now in a phase, in a period of time where there's a lot to be discussed at length and in detail, rather than touched upon, rather than, small incidents that can be named and described and then left alone. But let's see if we can endeavor to make some of the videos shorter. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please press the thumbs up. Do it right now. It's very helpful to us. Take good care of yourselves. Goodbye and God bless you.